it's Lindsey from Two Main Friends in a Podcast. We're kicking off with our first giveaway. To enter, comment favorite on the episode you enjoyed most on Spotify or text us on Apple Podcasts. We can't wait to hear what you love. You know, some of my favorite friendships in TV pop culture history would have to be Joey and Chandler from the TV show Friends.
Oh, absolutely. They're just so great all around. Like from how they connect with each other to how they support each other down the road. Like if you watch some of the later seasons, I think that that's a great example of good friendship.
I agree. And you know, I always think it's interesting because they bring out the best in each other, but sometimes the worst.
Yes.
But I think that's with relationships, right? You get to know someone and you know how to push their buttons, but then you humble yourself and come back and apologize. Like, sorry, didn't mean to push all those buttons.
One of my favorite examples of that is in the episode when Chandler's in the box.
Yes.
And he sticks his fingers out the little hole and goes, the point of the box is threefold, and he goes through like the whole thing that Joey like said to him, and that was an example. Like that was when he was like humbling himself because he made a huge mistake with him. And I love how in that, and I know it's a TV show, right? But it was relatable that they were able to always like pick up and still move on and still establish that they had a good friendship, even when they had these like huge moments of Joey is really mad at Chandler or Chandler's really mad at Joey, and for right reasons too. Like they do some things to each other that is not okay.
And they're so opposite of people. Like you've got Chandler, who we think works in finance. I'm pretty sure.
What is his job?
What is his job? So we think he works in finance, but then you have Joey, who's model, actor, goofy guy, and it just kind of brings a balance to each other.
Yeah. And you wouldn't think that would work so well because, you know, the business finance guy, kind of straight-laced, wears a suit and tie to work every day. And then you've got Joey, who's like wearing maternity pants to Thanksgiving, you know, like
one of my favorite episodes.
So I think you're right. Like it does give it balance. And I think that that's helpful in relationships in life because we do need that in each other, right? Like I am a little bit more reserved and quiet, and so having a friend that's not reserved and quiet is helpful to get me out of my shell.
Yeah. We're not opposites at all in that regard.
It's true. We're opposites in other ways, but not that one.
Not that regard. My other favorite TV duo in TV history has to be Corey and Sean from Boy Meets World.
100%.
I think if you know us, we love Boy Meets World. We went and saw their podcast live. It was so much fun to be able to do that and see them. But their friendship, similar to Joey and Chandler's relationship, it's completely opposite. You have Corey, who grew up in this kind of middle-class home, and his parents are heavily involved in his life. And then you have Sean, who they kind of give him the streetlight character. You know, his parents have some issues going on, and he is the leather jacket boy, which apparently on that show means that you're a bad boy. I don't know, but apparently. And so they have very different lives, but they support and encourage each other in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and they do really actually walk through life. Like, because you meet them when they're in 4th grade, I think.
I think it's 6th grade. They're junior high.
Yeah, so like young. Mm-hmm. And if you watch through the end, like they're like in college. And so all the scenarios that they face and they're able to come out on the other side of has been really cool to watch. So I'm rewatching that whole show with my son, who's going to be 10 soon. And it's been cool to watch it like with him too, and just kind of see it again with fresh eyes as an adult as well, because it's different when you watch things again as an adult. And I've really enjoyed watching how, you know, Corey comes to Sean's aid all the time, or how Sean does stick up for Corey in different ways and like pull him out of his shell a little bit. And I guess in reality to that show, it's the negative side sometimes, but they always have support. They always have like their family coming in to help guide them. And it's just been really cool to watch it again. But I love their friendship so much because they have so many different dynamics happening, and it's really fun to watch them.
Yeah, I think that they are a great example of what friendship could be.
Yeah.
In this world. And so I really appreciate that on 90s TV.
Yes.
That there were some really good examples of friendship and what friendship was like in your teen years, but also we go back to Joey and Chandler in your adult years, what that could look like. And they walk through a lot of seasons of life. Like you watch Chandler and Joey go through relationships and Chandler get married eventually. You see all of those pieces, which is, it's really cool to watch the progression of those friendships.
And I can remember being a teenager watching Friends and really wanting something like that, where like your friends show up and there's no knock on the door. They just come in and open the fridge and sit down on the couch. And like, that was a dream of mine, to have a relationship with at least one, but maybe more people, where they could just show up and it wasn't ever an intrusion. It wasn't sad. It was just like, hey, you're here, grab a drink, sit down, we're watching a show, or, you know, doing Thanksgiving or whatever the thing is. And I've just really wanted that in my life too. And there's been seasons where like I feel like we kind of had moments like that. But I think that in TV, it's easy to see those things and be like, oh, and we know that it's TV, but some things can be relatable to life. And I'm thankful that we've had those kind of moments to...
You're still like that. You still appreciate that moment, because I'll come to your house and knock on the door and walk in and you're like, did you really just knock? Is the first question you greet me with. Not, hey, how's it going? Did you really just knock on my door?
It's true. Because at this point in our lives, like, why are we knocking? Like,
fair. I think that leads us into today's topic on examples of friendships. Those are just a couple of examples that we've admired in our younger years, that we grew up watching and seeing on TV. And we talk a lot about how maybe we didn't see that a lot in our own personal lives. I know for me, I can count maybe the amount of times that my mom had her friends and her people. She and I recently actually just talked about this, and it just was rare. She devoted herself to working and raising her kids, which is great, and she had a handful of friends, but we didn't really see that in action sometimes.
Yeah, I don't remember my in my childhood any of the same either. I was one of four. So again, my parents were working and they were trying to keep up a house with 4 girls in it. So I can imagine, I remember how busy that was, but I don't remember seeing them have time with other people. And so as an adult now and understanding the value of friendship, it's kind of hard to see how to make it happen when you haven't seen it played out.
Yeah, and very much the same. I mean, it was just my brother and I for my parents, but we were 2 very active and busy kids. My dad worked a full-time job, and when he wasn't working, if he wasn't at business meetings in the evenings, he was running us to different sports, coaching our teams. My brother was playing t-ball. I was playing softball. My mom was at one event. My dad was at the other event. We were constantly on the go, it seemed like. So I don't know how they would have found the time to do those things. So I understand it, but it's definitely made me grow up realizing that there is the value in making the time for those friendships.
And I don't know that in like, so our generation growing up in like the 90s, early 2000s, kind of that generation when we were kids, I don't know how our parents did that either, right? Like there weren't things to help make things simple. Like you didn't have grocery deliveries and you didn't have a lot of these things. So I understand why like it was the way that it was, but I also understand the value now of, like you said, prioritizing it or trying to carve out a slice of time somewhere to have a friend or whatever. And again, like this is my experience. I don't know what it's like across the nation, or I haven't done research to see like statistically speaking, right? But I have had conversations recently with other people who are part of the same generation that I'm in, and they've said the same thing. I didn't see this played out. I didn't see my parents have friends over for dinner or have a mom went out and got her nails done with a friend or and so when we're not seeing it, and it's a common conversation I've had with other people, I think that maybe our generation, because our parents were so busy with the demands of life and work, it made it really hard for them to maybe carve out that time. Maybe it wasn't a possibility. Maybe it was a financial thing. Like there's so many factors that play into that. But I also think that now I want to try to change that for my kids so that they can see, oh, my parents have friends and like that's important. And they can also see how we're doing friendship.
I think it is such a valuable lesson to teach friends. I had a conversation a long time ago with one of my high school friends who has a teenage daughter, and she was saying, I wish that my daughter had what we had when we were in high school. We were inseparable in those years. We played softball together. So we grew up through middle school doing that, and then we went to high school, and we spent almost every other weekend at the other person's house doing those things. And she's like, we didn't have social media. We didn't have to worry about all of the negativity that brings in, or sometimes the drama that brings in, and feeling like you can't say or do anything because you're under a microscope all the time. And so I can't imagine now, not having kids of my own, how much pressure there is out there for teenagers today. Hearing some of the stories that she's told me about her daughter over the years, I'm so thankful for my social media less life in my teens, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know how teenagers these days are doing it, because I also can't imagine what that looks like. I mean, Facebook came out when it was becoming more popular, I should say. It didn't come out, but I was going into college. So the social media world wasn't what it is today. TikTok wasn't a thing, neither was Snapchat. And so back then there wasn't like the pressure of, I'm going to post about all this stuff. It was like rearranging on your do you remember on the boards? You could like rearrange.
Yeah. I think we talked about that in another episode. Yeah.
Rearrange the flare or the people, or poke someone. So, but in regards to friendship though, I think that today it's a lot harder because there isn't as much interaction face to face. Everything is typed out.
It's so easy to misunderstand a text message or to misunderstand what somebody's typing. There's not that face-to-face communication, like you said, facial expressions, body language, all of those things make a difference. So I think in the essence of being an example to another generation, how do we, in the stage of life that we're in now, how are we an example to those that are younger than us now?
That's a good question. I think, living it, right? Creating the time to meet up with friends. And like for me, it's like showing my kids, like, it's okay that mom is going away to have dinner tonight with a friend, or, like we're doing this podcast today and like they ask me questions about it and stuff too. So like seeing them, like have them see what we're doing and realize that friendships come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, but making the time for it. So I think the first step would be to making time and living it out, like doing it. So they see you on the phone with your friend if you call on the phone, or they see you having the conversation, or you're going out for coffee on a Saturday and they're staying home, or, that kind of thing is a good start.
I think that's important. I think it's also important that they are part of the conversation and part of the experiences too. Whether it's you and your friend are going to go grocery shopping together. We all have to go grocery shopping, so maybe you just decide to do it with your friend. Maybe you guys load up and you head to the store. You bring your kids along and they just get to hear the banter and they get to hear the conversation. And as long as that conversation is positive and it's healthy, they're going to learn from that. And that's what they're going to want when they get older as well.
Yeah. And I can think back to like when my oldest was little, we used to do that all the time. Mm-hmm. I can remember I would call you, or we would just go to the store and Dash is in the back, and, and so it's good for him to be a part of that. And I think that it's important. Like I agree with you. Like you said, to include them in what's going on so they can see it played out. I remember going through the grocery store recently, and there was box of cereal, and the two women on the front were Fruity Pebbles. So it's the Flintstones. Mm-hmm. And Dash pointed at it and said, "Mom, this is like you and Lindsay because they're friends." And I like sent you the Snapchat, and I was like, this is what it is, right? Like those are the things that I want him to remember and see played out so that he knows that he can have a friend like that down the road.
Yeah. One of my favorite examples of friendship was my Nana and her friend, Miss Jerry. And I grew up around them as a teenager, watching them banter with each other and just be kind of sarcastic, funny. These two older women in their 60s and late 60s, 70s, and going back and forth. And they would sit on the porch and snap peas together and put them in big pots for canning, or they would bake a plethora of cakes for the church, whatever they had going on that weekend. but they loved each other to their core. And like they would just show up for each other because of the love that they developed to the core. And that for me was so inspiring because it was like you can have fun in friendship and then get down to the nitty gritty when you need to. And so just watching the two of them walk through life together and walk through big changes together through the course of their friendship. And then eventually, you know, my grandmother, when she passed away, Miss Jerry was one of the first ones to reach out, you know, and like, because I was incorporated into their friendship, you know, I would go with my Nana to her house to have tea and lunch and those things. And so it was really cool to be able to be a part of that and to be present for it and learn from the two of them at such a generational gap of where we were. I was, you know, 16 years old watching these two ladies and their friendship.
That's so cool. I can remember going to church as a kid and seeing other people interact with each other. And many of them were friends that had been friends for years and years. And I remember thinking, how do you do that? How do you go through so much of life? Because they would chat about, you know, memories or different things coming up or the holidays, and they would often spend holidays together. And I remember like in my heart being like, I want something like that someday, where like there's 50 years of friendship and they can talk about everything and anything. And like you said, have fun, but also still have each other's back at the end of the day or show up when times are tough. And so I just remember like watching those ladies, like, and it's just on a Sunday morning, right? Like in passing, but seeing them interact with each other was inspiring in those moments to a little girl who was, you know, walking away.
I think it's so important when we start thinking about generational friendships and generational examples as well. My Nana was one of my favorite people. And so when she was alive, I would often call her for advice. And I have always said since the day that she passed away that she wasn't just my grandmother or my Nana. She was one of my best friends. I could tell her anything and I could talk to her about anything. And I would know that she would direct me in the right path, or that if I was being absolutely irrational about something, she was going to put me right back on my feet and lead me to the truth. And at the end of the day, that's what a good friend does, right? Is they put you back on the path that you need to be on, and they lead by example in doing that in their own life. And not to say that we don't stumble and we don't fall and we don't do things that maybe aren't on the path that we should be following, but at the end of the day, a good friend will lead the example for you. And I think having those generational friendships that maybe they're a little bit older than you or a little bit younger than you, that you still have the opportunity to be an example and be somebody who can point people back to the truth and help them whenever they're not being maybe as rational as you know that they can be.
No, absolutely. I heard recently somebody say how you should be like, in life, we should have our hand up to like have someone help pull us up and our hand down to help pull somebody else up. And I loved that visual of like someone's helping me in my life figure out, you know, like you said, when we fall down, when we're being irrational, picking me back up and helping me like get back on track, but also looking to someone a little bit younger than me. Maybe they're like a couple seasons away from where I am, right? Maybe they're exploring college or newly married or something like that. And bringing them under my wing or to help with whatever life faces. And I think that's important because it shouldn't be that we're doing life with the exact same age group all the time. But also there's value in the people that have gone before us. And I know that the older I get, I'm very grateful to have people in my life that are older and can give wisdom and encouragement in ways that they've been through life a little bit longer, so they know what they're talking about. And I value that, and I welcome those kinds of friendships. And it makes my heart sad to hear, because I've talked to some people a little bit older than us, like a few generations beyond us, and I hear them often say, I don't know what my place is. Nobody wants to listen to what I have to say. And I don't know that that's entirely true, because the more that I talk to people in my generation, we're longing for that. We're longing for someone to come along and be like, hey, this is how you make the bread, right? Like, this is how you do this thing that isn't as common anymore. And I wish that we would have more dialogue about that, so we could have opportunities to be invited into conversations with people that have lived a little bit longer.
That poses a great question. How do we make those cross-generational connections so that we have those examples of friendship in our life?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer for that, because I rub shoulders with some people that are a little bit older, and I'm grateful for those moments, but it's not consistent. And so I don't have a good response, I guess.
And that's okay. I don't think that there is necessarily the right response or the wrong response to that answer. I think it goes back to maintaining relationships a little bit too, that in order to have those examples, we have to do a little work to get where we want to be with our connections. So if I find value in this person and I want their word in my life, I need to make the efforts to reach out to them, whether that's, hey, can we go grab coffee? Can we have regular coffee dates? Or however, to set that up. I can remember when I assisted with Master's Commission or Generation Transformation more up in this area, I can't remember if it was the first or second year, but we started doing church initiatives with people in the church who wanted to sign up to teach a class, basically, because we found the value that there were people in the church that could teach the students a lot more life skills, valuable skills than I could, being only 5 years older than some of them. And so in those situations, we did a family where the husband was very mechanically inclined. So he taught them how to change their oil and do all of those pieces there. And he was maybe 10 years, if that, max of our youngest student. He had a wife and 2 boys, and he brought them over and he taught them how to do all of those things. But what a great example for them just to see he and his wife interacting with each other, with their boys. And now a lot of those students, most of them, I would say, have gone on and they're married and they have their own kids. And who knows what that impact was for them as well. And then we had another couple come in. One was a dentist and his wife, and they talked about finances and how to really get financial security and really walk through that. And so what a great example for them to come in and share all of their years of history and their financial wellness that they had walked through and what they had learned through that. And I could go on with all of these stories about how we integrated that. But because we did that, what started to happen was our students started to gravitate to the ones that they connected with during those little sessions that they had. And those people became examples to them. So it's really just finding the common ground. And then you start building up those relationships with those people. And then you're able to speak into the younger generation's life. But also, at the end of the day, the younger generation can speak into our lives too. We learn so much from people that are younger, the new perspectives, the new thought processes. And I'm constantly being challenged by the younger generation and having those relationships with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I can remember back to when I started out of college and stuff. And I graduated kind of early, so I was very young. And I was very grateful to have the opportunities that I did, but I was never once ever made to feel like my age was an issue. And had it not been for those experiences where my voice and my opinion and what we were talking about mattered, gave me the confidence when I didn't feel confident every time I walked into those rooms, right? Like when you're 18, 19 years old, going into a room with 30 somethings and 40 somethings, you kind of feel out of place a lot of the time. At least I did. And so I'm glad that now I can look at somebody who's 18, 19 years old and say, your voice matters, what you're saying matters, and give them an opportunity to share their heart or talk about something that is on, like, that weighs on them, so that they can feel like their voice matters too. Because in that awkward stage of trying to figure out life, trying to figure out who you are as a person, it can feel overwhelming sometimes, and you're not quite sure where you stand on things. But when someone comes alongside you and says, you can do this, I believe in you, and I see these things in you, and they call it out, that's so helpful. And I don't know that I would be the person that I am today if it wasn't for those people in my life during that season that said, you can do this. Your age doesn't make a difference unless you make it a difference, and just do it. And so I did. And there were moments where I was leading teams of people at 19 years old with people of varying ages. And I was able to do that because I knew they had my back and that they believed in me enough to do it. And I think if we're more willing to have those conversations and let other people in and discuss those things and like not look down on them and like, well, you're just a dumb 18-year-old, right? Like we hear that often. And yeah, they might not always make the right choices, but if it's a safe space for them to make a mistake and know that it's not the end of the world when they do make the mistake, we can help them back up and push them forward in the right direction. I think that's important.
I agree. Absolutely. And similar to that, when I worked in Maine, I had a pastor who I like came onto staff of these well-established people. They were all friends. They worked together for years and knew each other. And I was kind of the newbie. And I remember every one-on-one, he would always do your 30, 60, 90-day planning. And I remember every one-on-one that we would go through that, he would add to my 30, 60, 90, use your voice. Every single one.
That's so good.
And I remember looking at him and being like, but I'm just the assistant to this person. And he said, I don't care what your title is, use your voice. And he was like, we've never been about titles here. Yes, like that's what's on paper. That's what I pay you as, but use your voice. And I just, over the years, I always go back to that because of what a great example. And like he and his wife were friends during that season too, and great mentors to me during that time. And that is the one thing that always stuck that he said to me, use your voice. And in my career now, use your voice. Like, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to share your ideas is really where he was coming from when he would say, use your voice. Don't be afraid of your ideas. It is okay. And if you don't have the right idea, we'll figure it out. Right. And so it's just really cool to like have those people in your life that can speak that to you and it resonate for you so many years later. And we need that. We need that so badly.
I think that in a world where social media drives so much, having people in your life to speak the truth like that and be able to give voice to the next generation and the opportunities will help us moving forward because they need the confidence too, to know that we're here for you. We're not going to bash you over the head, you know? And so I think it's important that we help the next generation after us know that will be a safe space for them.
Yeah. So no matter your age, no matter what season of life you're in right now, you are a great asset to the people around you. We need you. And we need each other at the end of the day. We need to be examples of friends. We need to be examples of how to live strong lives, how to maybe fail and get back up again. Example is very much key in relationships, and we need each other's voices to be heard in our lives.
And I'd also say, too, to anyone that might be older than us, we value your voice, too, and we welcome your friendship. And I know it might feel awkward to maybe start it, but we are always down for coffee. If you need, like, always down for coffee. So I would challenge us, and maybe we have to make the first step, too, right? Like, ask that person out for coffee. And you know, it's great. It would be great to have a mentor that would just say, you know, this is what I've walked through in life and here's some things that I've experienced, or even just to hear the stories of the days gone by, right? Like that.
I love that. I love those stories. So a challenge this week, like you said, invite that person to coffee, make that connection, be that example to the people around you. That's a wrap on this episode of Two Main Friends in a Podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. You can also send us an email at twomainfriends@gmail.com. And as always, leave us a review wherever you're listening.